Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, Cayman Haven. My name is Cayman, but you can also call me Gary. It's been a while, guys, actually, but I'm back today because I'm really excited to talk about Godzilla vs. Kong, which is the fourth movie in the so-called Monsterverse, of which the first three films were Godzilla 2014, Kong Skull Island, and Godzilla King of the Monsters. This movie, Godzilla vs. Kong, pits two of the most iconic monsters from the monster movie genre against each other, making this one of the most highly anticipated event movies of the year because we have two very popular pop culture intellectual properties. Got Godzilla from Japan, Kong from Hollywood, coming together in like one huge crossover event. And personally, anytime there's a movie with the word versus in it, I'm in, like it's a huge thing, it's not just any characters. We're talking Godzilla and we're talking King Kong. So this is a huge deal. So before I review the movie itself, there are two things I would like to sort of talk about. The first being, like the other movies leading up to this one, I really enjoyed the first Godzilla movie. I loved the way they kept Godzilla obscured and kind of mysterious for the entire movie before he's like fully unleashed at the end. I thought Kong Skull Island was an absolute blast. I enjoyed the characters, all the different monsters and creatures on the island, and I enjoyed all the King Kong action sequences, which were very thrilling and very inventive. I know a lot of people didn't really like Godzilla King of the Monsters, but I thought it was awesome. It was really epic, it was fun, but most importantly, I thought the movie was a loving tribute to the classic Japanese Godzilla movies. From the stunning monster designs, the music, the visuals, and all the monster action sequences, all of it just felt incredibly faithful to the old Japanese Godzilla movies that I grew up with. The second thing I really want to talk about is Adam Wingard, who is the director of Godzilla vs. Kong. Now, I love Adam Wingard. He directed the horror movie You're Next and the suspense thriller The Guest, starring Dan Stevens, both of which I really enjoyed. The reason why I'm so interested to talk about Adam Wingard is because the last movie he directed prior to Godzilla vs. Kong was Death Note on Netflix, the 2017 live-action adaptation of the popular Japanese anime, which everyone absolutely hated. Hated this movie. People ripped this movie to shreds. They tore it to pieces, okay? Harsher words have never been said about any movie. Now, I'm gonna be completely honest with you guys, okay? And this is gonna be a hot take. I know it's not gonna be a popular opinion, but I'm just gonna put it out there, okay? I love the Netflix Death Note, okay? Yeah, I said it. I really love what Adam Wingard did with his adaptation of Death Note. I thought he brought a ton of energy and kineticism to the movie. I love his style, his visual sensibilities, and his music choices. And I'm just gonna say it, okay? And this is gonna be very controversial, okay? I may even regret saying this, okay? But I think Adam Wingard's Death Note is my favorite version of Death Note. I prefer his version over the anime. Wow, I can't believe I just said that. I love his version of Light and L, the two main characters in Death Note. I prefer them over the Japanese version. I love his version of Light, who's more of a dumb teenager with a conscience, rather than an outright psychotic villain, which is how he was portrayed in the anime. And personally, I think it has the best ending as well. I think his ending is superior than the anime and any of the other live action adaptations. Now, the concept of Death Note, which is the concept of a magical book that kills people when their name is written in it, is a pretty cool concept when you think about it. What the Japanese anime did was that they turned this concept into a nail-biting, suspenseful, cat and mouse thriller that was quite dark and serious. Even though it was aimed at teenagers, it was still exploring really heavy themes like injustice, vigilantism, youthful repression, god complexes. But when you really think about this concept, it's also kind of ridiculous and absurd. It's actually really silly when you think about it. And what I love about Adam Wingard was that he completely embraced the absurdity and the silliness of the concept and ran with it. He made it completely his own. And look, you can say that his version of Death Note is inferior to the Japanese anime, and most people would probably agree with you. But say what you will, one thing you cannot accuse Adam Wingard for is that you cannot accuse him of making a lazy rehash of the anime. It's not a carbon copy. It's not a cynical cash grab. It's not a beat for beat remake. Like it or hate it, his version of Death Note is its own thing. It's completely different, which is more than I can say for most remakes. He made a movie that was a reflection of his own sensibilities. Basically, everything that everyone hated about the movie, I loved. I loved the fact that Adam Wingard took such huge swings with the movie. It's really goofy, it's silly, it's incredibly over the top with the violence, the performances, the tone, the style. The best way to describe Adam Wingard's Death Note is that it is completely bonkers, okay? It has a crazy, bonkers energy that is completely unpredictable. And bonkers is a great word to segue into my review of Godzilla vs. Kong, because this movie is completely bonkers. And I mean that in the absolute best possible way. I had an absolute blast with Godzilla vs. Kong. I think Adam Wingard brought the same crazy energy from Death Note into this movie. It was incredibly fun. I had the biggest, dumbest, stupidest grin on my face the entire time. Like, this is my kind of movie, you know? I think everyone who considers themselves to be a lover of cinema, I'm talking about not just someone who loves watching movies, but someone who appreciates cinema and consider film to be an art form. You love all kinds of movies, all kinds of genres. I think every person who considers themselves to be a film lover goes through this phase, which I like to call the pretentious film snob phase, okay? Where you want every movie to be incredibly well written. You want every movie, including the big blockbuster ones, to be like critically acclaimed. You only watch movies that's like made by Christopher Nolan or Martin Scorsese or David Fincher. You want the script to be written by Aaron Sorkin or Quentin Tarantino. And you want Academy Award winning performances, or you want A-list actors. You want all your movies to be like Inception or Parasite or Knives Out. And you almost feel arrogant in your knowledge of cinema. You're like, my tastes are superior than the, average movie-going audience. Every person who loves movies goes through this phase, okay? But now I'm like way past that stage now. I'm now in this phase where I just want a big, dumb, silly, blockbuster action movie. I want big explosions. I want mass property destruction in my movies. I don't care about the script. I don't care if the actors aren't Academy Award winning actors. I just want a movie about a giant lizard fighting a giant monkey. And that's what I want right now. And that's basically what I got. Now, I don't watch movie trailers, okay? That's just a general principle of mine. I like going in fresh without seeing a single frame of the movie or knowing anything about the plot. I even try to avoid reading the synopsis if I can. And as always, I was really glad I avoided the trailers because the trailers ruin a lot of the big surprises and jaw-dropping moments that I was lucky to experience in the movie theater for myself. In terms of the story, I'm not going to dive too deep into what this plot is to avoid spoilers. All I will say is that there's an exploration plot line in the movie that I found to be a pleasant surprise because I knew absolutely nothing about where the story was going to go. It really opened up the world of the Monsterverse in interesting ways and allowed for some fun like world building that I did not see coming and could potentially lead to, sequels as well in the near future. Basically, the best thing that this movie has going for it, and one that's I've already seen mentioned by a lot of people, is that this movie is very self-aware. It knows exactly what it is. It knows exactly what the audience want. And it has no illusions about wanting to be anything else other than a big, dumb monster movie. It knows exactly why you're here. The movie is designed to give you what you want and to give it to you efficiently. Like, the story is really dumb. Some of it doesn't make any sense when you think about it, but the story is just serving a function of filling in the gaps between the monster fighting. And the same applies to the human characters as well. One of the biggest complaints that people had with Godzilla King of the Monsters was that the human interactions got in the way of the monster mayhem. And it's clear that Godzilla vs. Kong took that criticism to heart. The characters are developed just enough to move the plot along and to get things going. There's no attempts at crafting anything remotely close to resembling real human drama. Nor is there any real reason to. And why? Like, this is not that kind of movie. The human characters are just there to connect the points and to facilitate the story around the action. That's it. That's their function. I don't have a lot to say about the actors. I thought Alexander Skarsgård was okay. I like the fact that he's playing kind of like a goofy scientist instead of a conventional pretty boy like action hero. He's not Chris Pratt from Jurassic World or Indiana Jones. He's just kind of like a scientist who's trying to be funny, but he's actually kind of lame. And I kind of like that he's not playing like the dashing, handsome action hero, which he could have so easily been. I really love Rebecca Hall in this movie. I would watch anything that Rebecca Hall is in. I think she's awesome in everything. And even here, even though she's like playing a pretty ordinary character, I just like seeing her, which is basically how I would describe most of the characters in this movie. I feel like the actors are just really playing themselves, and it's really their own personalities that's doing most of the heavy lifting and not the script or writing. Obviously, no one is going to live up to Ken Watanabe, who's like the best character in these movies, but you know, there's just enough there with the characters. And again, you know, the movie is very self-aware. Like, Adam Wingard knows exactly what kind of movie he's making. He knows why you're here, what you paid money to see. So he does the bare minimum to make the characters interesting and the story simple, but doesn't let any character or story or plot get in the way of the monster fighting, which is what you want at the end of the day. You want the humans to get out of the way once the fighting begins, which is what I want to talk about. I want to talk about the monster fighting, which is awesome. The monster fighting's so good. This movie is called Godzilla vs Kong, and I'm pretty happy to say that the movie completely lived up to its title. They completely delivered on the action. It's so epic. It's so much fun. Once again, I'm so glad I avoided the trailers because the trailers spoiled a ton of like big moments and major surprises, which I'm so glad I got to discover in the movie theater for myself. But even then, I was really surprised by like how much action this movie had. Literally the last 20 to 30 minutes of this movie is just non-stop Godzilla and Kong fighting, and it is awesome. And the best thing about it is it's not like mind-numbing, like endless CG destruction, even though there is a lot of destruction. The last fight takes place entirely in Hong Kong, and I saw this movie with a friend, and by the time the movie ended, he turned around to me and said, "I don't think there's any Hong Kong left," which I thought was pretty funny. But even though there was a ton of action, the action was actually really inventive and creative. It wasn't like endless fighting. It wasn't Godzilla or Kong like just wailing at each other mindlessly for 20 minutes. There was actually a considerable attempt to have ebb and flow to the action and to show who was gaining the upper hand in the fight or who was losing advantage. Like, the movie actually went out of its way to convey that these monsters aren't just animals and they actually have a considerable amount of intelligence. Like, you can actually see these monsters changing their approach or switching up their tactics and applying different strategies to take each other down, which I thought was really refreshing. They even start to implement the surroundings and environment into the fights, which I really loved, because you've got Godzilla who's got a tail, and so he's got like, you know, the longer reach, and you've also got Kong who can like obviously climb on top of things, and so he's using height as an advantage. And it's so great because it's not just who throws the heaviest punch, but it's also the monsters like studying each other, and you can actually almost see the monsters like think when they're about to fight, and it just makes the monster fighting so much more thrilling and exciting, but also unpredictable, because you're always on the edge of your seat and you don't know who's gonna do what, and you're always surprised by what Godzilla and Kong does next as they try to outdo each other. Like, I'm gonna be really honest, the fight between Godzilla and Kong in this movie is so smart and inventive. It makes a lot of the human-on-human fights I've seen in other movies seem dumb in comparison. Like, it's been a while since I've seen this level of attention to detail that went into crafting any like fights in a movie, let alone one that involves like essentially two monsters fighting each other. It really feels like they got two guys, one person in a monkey suit and the other person in a Godzilla suit, and they just like sat there brainstorming on how to fight each other. The fights feel very well thought out, and it feels like choreographed violence rather than just mindless mayhem and destruction. I thought the action was so well done, and there were so many moments where I just wanted to leap out of my seat and cheer and like fist pump at the screen. Like, that's how awesome it was. Another thing I really love about this movie is the fact that even though the movie very much exploits Godzilla and Kong for the purpose of delivering big budget spectacle and large scale action to entertain the audience, the conflict between Godzilla and Kong never feels forced or manufactured for the sake of just having them fight each other for our amusement. It never feels like the movie engineered some half-assed excuse for them to fight, which could have so easily been the case. Their animosity actually stays authentic and true to who these monsters are and how they've been portrayed previously in other films. Like Kong, for example, is the heart and soul of this movie. Kong has always been portrayed as a sympathetic, tragic character, almost like a wounded beast. And that's how this movie portrays him. And his reasons for fighting Godzilla are very different to Godzilla's reasons for fighting him. Godzilla, on the other hand, has always been less of a character and more of a force of nature, who's always mysterious, and you're always on the fence about whether he's good or evil. So in that way, he's kind of like more of an anti-hero, which is exactly how he's always been portrayed in all the Godzilla movies. So even though there's a strong emphasis on like big CG heavy monster fights, I felt like the movie did an excellent job fleshing out the rivalry between the two monsters while still honoring the roots of their characters. You completely understand why they're fighting. So it's not just mindless spectacle for the sake of it. These monsters have motives that feel tangible and palpable. So every punch or blow that they throw at each other carries weight. And I really appreciated that. Now, there's one thing I didn't like, which I'll talk about in a spoiler section of this review. So if you don't want to know, just tune out. But overall, I thought this movie was an absolute blast. I had a great time. It's an absolute crowd pleaser. It's been a while since I've had this much fun watching a big blockbuster like movie. It's really dumb and over the top crazy, but it's totally what you want from a movie like this. Adam Wingard is the perfect director to make this movie because you want a director who can take big swings, commit to the ridiculousness of the premise, and bring his crazy energy. Most importantly, I'm just really happy that Adam Wingard got a chance to make another movie again. And not just another movie, but like a really high profile one like this one. Like seriously, I thought Death Note was going to end his career. And I'm so glad it didn't happen because, like I said, I love that movie. So it's great to see the positive responses and love that this movie has been getting. A part of me feels vindicated for my love of Adam Wingard. Personally, it's 4 out of 4 for me for him. Your Next, The Guest, Death Note, Godzilla vs. Kong, all great movies in my opinion. Adam Wingard apparently is already working on a sequel to Face Off, which is the John Travolta, Nicolas Cage 1997 action movie directed by John Woo, and I'm really excited about that. And just today, they announced that Adam Wingard is going to be directing the live action adaptation of Thundercats, the animated show, which I'm a huge fan of because I watched the show when I was a kid. So yeah, I'm just really excited for Adam Wingard's career right now. In saying that, even though I really enjoyed the movie, I know there's going to be people that's going to complain about the story and how like poorly written the characters are. There's gonna be people who will completely overlook all the good stuff in Godzilla vs. Kong because of that. And all I have to say to those people is, you came to the wrong place. This movie is not for you. If you came to this movie expecting a good script and really well acted characters, this movie is not for you, okay? It's not that kind of movie. It's a big dumb monster movie. So if you love monster movies, which I do, then you definitely need to watch this movie. No questions. And it's not just any monster movie. It's Godzilla and Kong. This is one of those massive crossover movie events that you're probably never gonna get in a long time. So you can't miss it. You can't. You have to watch it. Don't miss it. For sure. Anyways, those are my non-spoiler thoughts on Godzilla vs. Kong. I'm going to talk spoilers now, so leave a comment, leave a like, or subscribe. Feel free to come back once you've seen the movie. But spoilers starting right now. This is the spoiler section. You've been warned, okay? So what I want to talk about is Mecha Godzilla. I want to talk about Mecha Godzilla, okay? So this movie ends with them introducing Mecha Godzilla as the third villain, which I have to say, I was a little disappointed by, even though for commercial reasons, I can totally see why they did it. This movie's ending suffers from what I like to call the Batman versus Superman syndrome, What I mean by that is, whenever you have two popular characters or two big pop culture intellectual properties appearing in the same movie, you have to appease the fan base and the studio of both those properties. So even though the movie is called Godzilla vs. Kong, you can't have the movie end with one character outright being the good guy and the other being the bad guy. You just can't do that. Because there's investors and conflict of interests that the studios have to take into account. So the movie has to manufacture a third villain that both Godzilla and Kong have to defeat so that the movie can end with both of them, like, quote unquote, being the good guys by the end of the movie. Because you gotta keep the studio that owns Godzilla happy, but you also gotta keep the studio that owns Kong happy. It's the same thing that happened in Batman vs Superman. It's the same thing here. A part of me wished that they had the balls to just commit to just Godzilla vs Kong and have the movie end with one of them being like the clear victor. But at the end of the day, like, I totally understand why they did it. To be fair, Mechagodzilla is an actual character from the Godzilla franchise, so his inclusion in the climax doesn't feel like completely manufactured just to force a conflict. And also, I do think this movie makes it clear who the definitive winner is, which is Godzilla. And I thought that was awesome. Okay, we see Godzilla completely own Kong in the final battle, and I love the fact that they committed to that and there was no uncertainty or doubt about that. Godzilla won the fight, like, hands down. But I also thought they did an excellent job making Kong like a sympathetic character that you actually care about. What I love is that they actually made him the underdog in the movie, so the moment he decides to fight Mechagodzilla was like a huge, triumphant, like genuinely exciting moment. And in this movie, you actually see Godzilla get his ass completely trashed. Like, completely trashed by Mechagodzilla, which was like a really cool visual that I really enjoyed, because you rarely see Godzilla get his ass owned, you know, in his own movies. Like, Godzilla gets completely decimated in this movie, and if it wasn't for Kong, Godzilla would have died. I love that the movie gave both Godzilla and Kong like plenty of moments to shine. Like, Godzilla gets his glorious moment when he kills Kong, and then Kong gets his by being the one that kills Mechagodzilla. Also, Kong with an axe? I mean, come on, man. Like, this is what I mean by bonkers. Like, this movie has a giant ape carrying a battle axe. And it's not just any axe, it's an axe with a Godzilla fin as the blade. Which is why it glows, because Godzilla's fin glows when he fires his atomic breath. Like, I mean, guys, that is so cool. And I love that. Like, I really love that. I also really love the ending where Godzilla acknowledges Kong as a worthy adversary, and he kind of like walks away and swims back into the ocean. And the thing is, the movie completely earns that moment, even though Kong is like physically inferior to Godzilla. But what makes Kong awesome is that he has so much heart and he has that fighting spirit. So even though you know Godzilla could totally kick his ass at that moment, seeing Kong stand up for himself was like kind of awesome. And I won't lie, I started getting a little bit emotional myself. Like, I wanted to hug Kong by the end of this movie. Especially that moment when he finally returns to his home in Hollow Earth. Like, Kong gets to go back home, and that was like a really nice beat to end the movie. The other thing that I was a bit disappointed by, but it's just a nitpick, is the fact that Godzilla King of the Monsters ended with all these creatures and monsters bowing to Godzilla as the King of Monsters. But when this movie started, we didn't see any of them, and I don't think the movie even acknowledges where they are. And it seems strange that this movie is a continuation of Godzilla King of the Monsters, but where are all the monsters? Obviously, the next Godzilla standalone sequel would address that, but that's just an observation that I had. Anyways, have I told you how much I love this movie already? So on that note, those are my spoiler thoughts on Godzilla vs Kong. What did you think about it? Leave a comment, would love to hear your thoughts. Hit the like button if you've enjoyed this review, and hit subscribe if you want to see more. Thanks for watching, guys. See you next time. Bye.